If you have a hard time finishing your beats, the problem might be how you actually start your beats. You might just be making boring ideas to start with. So today I'm going to share 3 ways to start your beat so you actually end up wanting to finish it. Often what can make your beat boring is that there's not enough change. It feels like listening to the exact same loop on repeat over and over again. Now you can definitely fix this when you arrange your beat, but it might be a better idea to fix this within the loop itself to create a loop that feels less repetitive. So let's look at a few ways to do this. One idea that you can use is to build an uneven loop. Let me show you what this is and how helpful it can be. Now when you start your beat, you might build something that looks like this. A pattern where you have a pretty even amount of notes throughout your entire loop. So here we have a similar amount of music in the first 2 bars compared to the last 2 bars. Now there's absolutely no problem starting your beat this way, but one approach that you can take is to introduce an uneven amount of musicality. Let's say with this loop, instead I make the first 2 bars of my loop very musical, but then for the second 2 bars of my beat, the second half of this loop, instead of just repeating the exact same progression over and over again, I'm going to approach the second half differently. Here I'm going to create something that's far more simple. So now we have more musicality in the first half of our loop, and then when we get to the second half of our loop, it just becomes far more simple. Now as I introduce more layers into my beat and create more patterns, I'm going to have this exact same approach. Here we have this melodic sound that I'm going to add into my beat next. So let's build a pattern with this exact same approach. The first half is going to be more musical, the second half less so. Next, let's create our bass line. Again, the exact same approach. Alright, so my musical patterns are built, and I'm just going to build the drums and the other patterns in my beat like I normally would. You don't have to have this uneven approach with every single layer that you add into your beat. Just doing this to a few of your main musical sounds can be enough. And here we have our complete beat. As you can see, the first half of our beat has more complexity, more musicality, and then our loop becomes more simple. The reason this can help make your beat more engaging is that now it becomes far less of a monotonous experience. When we have an even amount of movement and energy throughout your entire loop, which again isn't a bad thing in itself, you might have to put more emphasis on your arrangement. You might need to make more smaller switch ups and add and drop sounds throughout your entire beat because the loop itself is just very even. It's a consistent listening experience. But now with this technique, our loop is built in a way where the loop itself helps solve this problem. We have the first half of our loop be more high energy and the second half lower energy. And our listening experience has this up and down feel as our loop repeats. You can think of this like watching this video, in fact. If I talk like this and I was completely monotone, you'd probably end up getting bored and tired because my voice is just so flat. And at that point, I could probably hypnotize you and get you to rob the nearest bank from your house and put the money into my new cryptocurrency Navcoin so I can become a billionaire and buy my own private island. Or, if I talk like this, all of a sudden the video becomes a lot more interesting and engaging to watch. So you can do the same thing with your beats. A great example of this idea being used in an actual beat that you can check out is Dreamy by J Dilla. If you listen, that beat has this exact same approach. One half of the loop is very musical, very complex, and then it simplifies in the second half. So that's one idea that you can use. Before we move on to the next, do me a favor, hit the like button and subscribe while you're at it. It really helps my channel out, so if any of my videos have ever helped you, it would mean a lot if you help back. And leave a comment down below. Answer the question of the week. On a scale of 1 to 10, how much do you want to see me wear a fedora in one of my videos? If I see enough 10s, I will make your dreams a reality and buy a fedora, and I'll wear it. Moving on though, another idea to help you actually make beats that you want to finish is to use a similar approach but with your rhythms. Let's take a look at this other beat that I have built here. So here we basically have a 2-bar loop that repeats. This beat's not very musical, so we can't use our first tip as a way to help this beat become more interesting. But playing with the rhythms of your beat is an entirely different approach that you can take. Now it's up to you how you want to do this and which sounds that you want to use. What I'm going to do with this beat is grab my kick pattern, for example, and delete the 4th bar here. Now what I'm going to do is introduce an entirely different, unique rhythmic pattern. In our first 3 bars, we have a very trap-esque drum pattern. So with the 4th bar here, I'm going to do something very different and create a 4 on the floor pattern. I'm also going to really increase the amount of notes as we get to the end of our pattern here. I'm going to make it really high energy. I'm going to do the exact same thing with the 808 pattern right here. Again, I'm just building something different than my other 3 bars. Same thing with my hi-hat pattern. So here I've built something very different than what I have prior. I also have this Foley sound here that I'm using as percussion. So again, in the 4th bar, I'll just shift some of these notes around. And with my weird sample here, I don't even know how to describe this sound, but I love it very much. I'm just going to take these chops and create something rhythmically different using the exact same chops though. Now after changing all of these patterns, let's listen to my full loop. So here, once again, we get that exact same feeling as the last loop. Instead of it being an even experience throughout, we get this jump up in energy in the 4th bar, where the beat really turns into a slobber knocker. This is a pretty drastic example here. We've made some big changes to a lot of our rhythmic patterns, but we can even do this to a smaller extent. With this beat, for example, I used the exact same rhythmic technique, but I just focused on creating smaller rhythmic changes to less patterns, to just the drums and the bass, for instance. It's not as substantial in this example, but it definitely does make the listening experience a bit more varied. And if you want a real world example of this, I would recommend checking out I Just Wanna Love You by Jay-Z. You'll notice that every 4th bar, the rhythm of the loop changes. The last tip that I wanna show you has more to do with the sounds that you use and how you build your patterns with them. This is definitely something that I'm guilty of, where I'm in the beginning stages of my beat and I have my foundation built. And when it comes time to add in our next layer, I build a pattern like this that lasts the entire loop. But again, there are times when just doing a bit of extra work will make your beat just much better. So instead of relying on just one sound to build an entire melodic pattern like this, an idea that you can use is splitting your pattern, where for one part of your pattern you can use one sound, and then you do the extra work of finding yet another sound that works with your beat. And then for part of your pattern, you use this new sound instead. It can just help make your beat more interesting overall. I know for me, there are plenty of beats that I love where there's a sound that shows up less often, and when it does play, it just feels more special because of how infrequently it plays in the beat. And that's what I'm trying to do here to achieve this exact same idea. Again, this is just something that I can be guilty of. It can be hard finding the right sounds for your beats, and once you actually find one, you feel like you don't want to go back looking for yet another sound that also works for your beat just because it can be so difficult. But doing that extra work can be a better way to start your beat at times. By the way, if you need help when it comes to choosing the right sounds for your beats, I'd recommend this video that I have showing up on the screen right now. I cover the most important sounds to use in your beats and how to use them, so if you struggle with finding good sounds for your beats, this video can be a help. And if this video has helped you, like and subscribe. Head over to betterbeatmaker.com to check out my full online beatmaking course. My free drum kit's available in the description box below, as well as a link to my free Discord if you want to join my producer community. And I will see you next time.